The nation is commemorating Juneteenth this weekend. It's the first new federal holiday in 36 years. On June 19, 1865, Union Army soldiers informed enslaved black people in Galveston, Texas, that they were free. The news came 2 years after President Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation and 2 months after the end of the Civil War. President Biden signed the legislation this week, officially recognizing the day as a federal holiday. CBS News correspondent Christina Ruffini has more from the White House.
From a Juneteenth flag raising in Boston,
this is an amazing day in our city,
to a march in St. Paul, Americans celebrated their first new federal holiday in 36 years. Also known as Jubilee Day and Black Independence Day, Juneteenth marks the moment in 1865 when, 2 months after the end of the Civil War, Union troops finally got all the way to Texas to tell the enslaved people there they were free.
This is one of the ways to acknowledge that our ancestors weren't free for 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation.
94-year-old Opal Lee has been fighting for federal recognition of Juneteenth for decades.
You are an incredible woman, Ms. Opal. You really are.
She got a front row seat when the president signed the bipartisan bill and one of his pens. But she says the fight isn't over.
We've still got much work to do, and we see this as a great beginning.
Advocates argue that work includes passing federal voting rights legislation, currently stalled in Congress, to protect against new restrictive voting laws in states like Florida and Georgia that critics say disproportionately impact people of color.
We are talking about the preservation of a right. That is the right of citizenship.
And a police reform bill, which President Biden encouraged lawmakers to pass in April during his speech to a joint session of Congress.
But let's get it done next month, by the first anniversary of George Floyd's death.
But that anniversary came and went without congressional action.
Lana, the federal government was closed yesterday, but today is the actual holiday, so expect to see many more Juneteenth celebrations across the country.
Christina, thank you. While some applauded the new federal holiday, some advocates in the black community have called the move performative and argue that it does not do enough to address the systemic racism that still faces black Americans to this day. CBS News political contributor Antjuan Seawright joins me now for more. Antjuan, first of all, happy Juneteenth. Good to see you. And then
happy Juneteenth.
Talk to us a little bit about why making Juneteenth a federal holiday was so important and what this day means to all of us Americans.
Well, Lana, you know the history. It was 2.5 years after Lincoln declared the Emancipation Proclamation. The word did not travel across the South to Galveston, Texas. And so there were 2,000 Union troops who made their way to deliver the message that slavery is no longer a thing. If I think about the stories I've heard growing up from my grandparents across the South, although we knew the Emancipation Proclamation gave us freedom, we went from slavery to sharecroppers. And in their own way, that was still a case of slavery in its own regard. And so fast forward to tape, 40 years later, it was because of black voters all across this country that gave Democrats both the majority in the House, in the Senate, and the presidency. And now Juneteenth is a holiday. It's a day of freedom. It's a day of liberation. It's a day of celebration. And while we pause to do those things, Lana, we do not press the stop button because there's so much more work to do. I was so proud to see the first black woman vice president of the United States say, happy Juneteenth. And while we all celebrate that, but if you think about what's going on, why she was saying that, there's still black people fighting for our right to freely participate at the ballot box. There's still issues of poverty that exist in our community that make no comparison to communities that do not look like ours. Antjuan Seawright is 3 to 4 times more likely to be killed or mishandled at the hands of law enforcement, more so than people who do not look like him. Environmental injustices, the have and have-nots conversations weight our communities down. And so while we pause to celebrate, we still have to push towards progress in this country.
And you know, Antjuan, as we were talking a little bit about history, it was on June 19th that absolute equality, that phrase, absolute equality, was declared between former slaves and former slave masters. More than 150 years later, Black Americans are still fighting for equality and justice. Talk to us about how the holiday serves as an opportunity for our nation to reckon with that reality.
Well, I think that you have to learn from history so you do not repeat history. And my grandmother used to say when I was growing up, Lana, she would oftentimes say, what you do not know can hurt you, but what you do know can help you. The fact that Americans will now have to fully pay attention, all of us, not just Black people, not just those of us who may attend an institution of higher education and so forth, everyone will now pause, I think, a bit more and pay attention to what the history and the period of slavery meant to this country and how the Black experience has helped shape what the American experiment looks like. I remember one of my last conversations with John Lewis before he slipped away. He said to me, and I never forget this, Lana, he said, all we ever wanted in this country as Black Americans, those of us who are the African seed and the American son and daughter, is oceans of justice and rivers of fairness. Oceans of justice and rivers of fairness. If you ask the question to anyone who looks like me or who has background of experiences that look like mine, I think we have a long ways to go, even though we've come a long way.
You know, Antjuan, I think that there's something that's particularly important about Juneteenth is a celebration that many communities have celebrated, and in many ways that doesn't change, but having it become a federal holiday, something that every single American needs to acknowledge and celebrate, that enslaved people were finally freed. It's such an important step for us as a nation. What more needs to be done, though, about issues like voting rights, police reform, closing the racial wealth gap, that we need to keep ever present in our minds?
Well, look, Lana, while I think it's a gigantic step, it's certainly not the final step. The same bipartisan spirit that delivered Juneteenth as a federal holiday, first federal holiday in 40 years, is the same bipartisan spirit that should deliver us free and fair access to the ballot box, that should close the wealth gap in this country, should push us to a place of not just equity, but equity and equality, because there are two differences. It should force us to have real conversations and acknowledge the fact that racism and bigotry and hate, those things exist, and it's up to our leaders to push back and call those things out when we know they're happening in the ecosystem. I think that's what we have to do. I think that's what this moment should mean for all of us. And I do not think that this is one thing that could say for other people who may not agree with the experiences of ours to say, well, just because I support Juneteenth or I know about Juneteenth, that does not make me racist. No, we can't get into that posture. In fact, we should lose this as a growth opportunity and a continued learning opportunity, because when I'm better, you're better. When you're better, I'm better. When all of us are better, then I think America's better.
Well, I have you, my friend. I want to talk to you about some other reporting you've been doing. And obviously, this week marked 6 years since the Charleston church shooting. A white supremacist opened fire inside the Mother Emanuel AME church and murdered 9 people. You sat down with some of the victims' family members. Talk to us about how this tragedy is still impacting them today.
You know, Lana, I had to shed a tear on Thursday because not only was it 6 years that 21-year-old white supremacists walked into historic Mother Emanuel and murdered 9 people who worshiped in their God, but we also signed into law, the president signed into law, the Juneteenth celebration, Juneteenth national holiday. So while we celebrate on one regard, it's a friendly reminder that America still has a long ways to go. The fact that we're still having more and more Mother Emanuel type situations in my lifetime, something that I heard in the lifetime of my sharecropping grandparents. And so when I sat down with the Pinckney family, when I sat down with Pastor Eric Manning, who's now the pastor of historic Mother Emanuel, it was for me a very emotional time, but it was a consequential time, because you know what? That could have been any of us, Lana. It could have been you, could have been me, it could have been my mother. I knew Senator Pinckney and Pastor Pinckney very well. I did almost every campaign he had in his most recent political career. And so we had a personal connection. And then I'm fifth generation AME. And so to know that my uncle's an AME bishop and know that it could have been a worship service that he was preaching at, or that a Bible study that he was conducting that could have turned into one of the worst massacres in our nation's history, those things are a friendly reminder that racism still exists, bigotry still exists. There's still white supremacists walking around like Dylann Roof, who has the thinking and the mindset of Dylann Roof. And that's why it's a big deal for us to have this holiday known as Juneteenth, so we can learn from the stains of history that exist in this country, so we do not repeat those sins over and over again. That's what the American experiment is all about.
Exactly what your grandmother articulated so well. Antjuan, thank you.
Thank you.